Recording. Okay, so this is Premiere. Go ahead and go to New Project. Okay, this first module, this is your scratch disks, okay? This is where it's going to automatically save your files. Video programs always have a automatic backup because they quit a lot. So here's where you're going to store your project, okay? So if you go, this is important, you don't want to have 12,000 untitles on your scratch disk, okay? So go ahead and go to Browse, and this is where you're going to choose where you're going to save this. I would highly recommend putting it on, like, making a folder on your external hard drive that is just called, like, Video Scratch or Video Projects or something like that, so that you just have, like, a standard file, okay? I'm recording this, so you can just have photos kept up. Yeah, no, you're okay. Okay, so just choose a folder or make a folder. For the time being, I'm just going to put it on the desktop. And then just click choose, and then you'll also have to give it a name, okay? So I'm just going to name this, like, tutorial, glitch tutorial, something like that. Okay, so this is what it's automatically going to save as and back up as, okay? You can always go to, like, File Save As to save other versions, but this is how you can kind of get it started, all right? This stuff here, okay, so where it says General, this is, like, how it's rendering. You can just keep, like, the Mercury playback engine. There's different playback engines and rendering engines. So, for instance, like, OpenCL, that's really good for 3D. So you don't have to worry about this. Just to let you know, this is your time code. You can have it display in frames or in, you know, the second and minutes time code. That's all good stuff. And then your capture format, you can actually bring, like, video that you've captured on a recording device directly into this program. DV, HD. HD stands for HD. DV stands for non-HD. You don't have to worry about this right now because we're not capturing anything. But that's what all that stuff means, okay? So we can kind of just skip this. We're really just using this to kind of, like, set up and save our file. So just click OK. Okay, then it's going to bring up the actual Premiere interface. If you have this Learn one, you can just close it. So close panel. You can just close it because we're not going to really use that one. And let me just minimize the screen a little so you can see the full Premiere experience. Okay, so this is Premiere. The first thing that we're gonna do is just do a tour of what we're looking at here, okay? So this little box here, this is where you're gonna import your media, okay? This is actually, like, where this is your timeline, like where the videos are gonna go and where you're gonna edit them. This is the source viewer, so you can actually view your source footage here. And then this is what you're editing, right, will be here. So this box is your whole composition. This is the individual piece that you're working with. This is how you upload and browse your files. And this is your timeline where the files will actually be with time signature, okay? So obviously we're working with, like, imagery and plus time here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and drag your video, whichever video you want to use for the time being, into this box. Yeah, we're in Premiere. I'm going to do, what do I want to do? Okay, so you're going to drag your video in here, and you're pretty much just importing a file. What just happened? Importing a file, okay? So everyone was able to successfully get a video in here. Does anyone need a minute? Okay, so to make a composition, all right, so the composition is going to be like our actual little video project in the timeline. All we need to do is just take whatever file you want to work with and drag it into the timeline. Okay? And it'll automatically set up a composition for you.
Wait, so you just dragged another video in there?
I dragged one video into the timeline, and that creates a composition. I can put as many videos into a composition as I like. So this right here is the composition which contains this video.
Oh,
So it's kind of just like you can have as many Photoshop files as you want with as many images as you want. Okay?
okay.
So this is the source, right?
That's almost like a texture that we've not put on a material. Kind of, like in a sense.
That's a really generous metaphor.
Right, so
Maybe.
I think
But like, so just think of it as like a file, like a Photoshop file. Like here's our like source imagery, and then the composition is kind of just like the file where you're going to be editing that piece of material, but you can also add like more materials in there and edit them. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, so if you go up to sequence, this is essentially a sequence. Okay, so your composition is also referred to as a sequence. All right, so if you go up to sequence settings, okay, here's all the settings for this sequence. Okay. Really, the only thing that we need to worry about here is just the size, right? So, for instance, we want to work with 16:9 video aspect ratio. Okay, 16:9 aspect ratio is going to be the like sort of widescreen format that's like really normal today, right? So, like this screen right here and the screens that you're looking at, those are 16:9 format. Okay, so some of the stuff that we looked at the other day, like the Namjoon Pike stuff. Does anybody remember the aspect ratio that I said for the more square format video in your like VHS childhood dreams?
3x4?
4:3, yeah, 4:3, yeah. So a more square format. You can absolutely make videos in square format, but you're gonna have two black bars on the outside. So like people that are into kind of like vintage designy things, right? Like that's something that you could work with very well. Yes.
So is 16:9 the same aspect ratio?
16:9 is the wide format aspect ratio. 4:3 is the square aspect ratio.
Okay, so it's not like a proportional thing between the numbers and the colon.
It is. It's a ratio.
Okay, so they don't end up coming to the same specs, like proportionally?
Do you mean 4:3, 16:9?
Yeah,
They're
like
different.
16:9.
4:3 is square. 16:9 is rectangle. And you can like put it, just do 4 divided by 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that's important to keep in mind is that video comes in standard sizes. Okay. These are called codec. We have codec. So there's two different things: the term codec and aspect ratio. Okay. So codec is like the size of the video and how it's compressed. Okay. We'll talk about like compression formats. You have like .mov, H.264. All these different things. We'll talk about those when we're actually ready to render because I'm throwing a ton of information at you. But 16:9 video comes in standard sizes, okay? Right now we have 1280 by 720, okay? That's a standard 16:9 size, okay? And then the one that's up is going to be 1080 by 1920, okay? So long story short, when you see something on a really super huge screen, it's usually in one of those sizes. This size is just the slightly smaller, slightly less super fucking HD for the 16:9. Okay? This is important just like so that you can set up your video in the right way. And the thing that's important to keep in mind about this specifically is that when you create your composition based on a material, it'll automatically make it into that size. Okay? So if you, a person that has taken a video on your phone, go up to sequence. You have to make sure that you're clicked on the composition. If you go up to sequence settings, it's going to tell you what size your video is at. Does anybody have 1920? Yeah, so that's fine. That's just the size that your video has captured at, okay? The important thing to keep in mind here, it works just like images. You can scale down, but scaling up, you're going to lose quality, okay? So Sandra, if all your videos that you're working with aren't 1920, then you may lose some resolution when you scale up, okay? So what you can do is you can like create a new sequence that's smaller and then shrink the video down if you wanted to. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so your videos are going to capture in one of these two formats, okay? Just keep in mind like what size the videos are. We're going to be glitching the fuck out of things, so maybe it won't matter so much. But if you're like, for instance, if you're doing like photo documentary or video document, you know what I mean? If you're like actually sourcing like high quality imagery, just like in Photoshop, it's important to keep in mind what size you're capturing and what size you're actually creating a composition at. Did I lose anybody there? Does this all kind of make sense?
Capturing meaning like the original video?
Yeah, the original video. Make sense? Okay, let's do some fucking editing. Let's stop talking about this. Okay, so here's your video. This is your timeline, okay? This little yellow bar is how long your timeline currently is. Premiere's real nice now. It used to not be this way. You used to have to tell it, like, I need you to be this exact size, but it'll automatically render a video out to, like, whatever you have inside of here, which is really nice. So, for instance, if your video is only 30 seconds long, when you export it, it will only export 30 seconds of video. So it's actually a lot smarter. We're going to switch into After Effects in a minute. After Effects is not as smart. You have to be more deliberate with After Effects, okay? So, a little tour of the interface. So this is your timeline. This is your source material. This is how long your composition is going to render out at. This is your playhead, okay? This thing right here, that's your playhead. That's when you scrub this around, when you move this, it's called scrubbing. I don't know who came up with that. It's just what it's called. That's how you can sort of see the parts of the video. You can scrub around, and your playhead will be like what you're seeing in this viewport here, okay? We can move this over a little bit. You can adjust how you're seeing this portion of the video. Right now it's set to fit. If you go over here, if you see my mouse, you can say like 25%. Setting it on fit is usually a good thing to do, okay? Because it'll just fit into the screen. And you can sort of like move any of these around that you want to. So I can make this bigger, make it smaller, etc., etc. Okay, so the main thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of cutting up your video. So let's scrub to the very beginning of the composition. So just move that playhead with the mouse over to the beginning of the composition. And if you hit spacebar, your video will play. Yes?
I think there's a chance to make this lines bigger, like the scale.
Yeah.
Can you change this?
So, that's another thing about this. This down here, see this little kind of like, these little dots here? When you drag in, it zooms. And when you drag out, it zooms out. Okay? So for instance, let's say you want to get like, 1 frame by 1 frame. Vitaly, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So you can zoom in here to the actual material that you're working with, and you can zoom out. So a lot of times the way that I use this is, let's say I have like 25 different video materials, right? I'll like scrub to kind of where I want to go, and then I'll zoom in, because it'll always zoom in at the playhead, and then I'll be able to move this around like frame by frame and get the spot, like the exact spot I want to make my edit. Okay? So it's a little counterintuitive, like pulling it away from each other zooms out, pulling it together zooms in. Okay? So you can just kind of mess with this. Does that make sense to everybody? So everyone's able to do this? Make shit move around? Okay. So let's do some actual editing here, alright? So over here, we're really just going to focus on the razor tool right now, alright? So this razor tool right here, it looks like a razor. Okay? What this allows you to do is it allows you to cut your material. So this is the razor tool. Photos, can you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want you to do is move your playhead to the beginning of your composition, hit the spacebar, and find a spot where you want to make a cut. Okay? So I'm going to say I have this spot where it kind of like gets really bright and then starts to move. I want to make my cut like right here. So what I'll do is I'll kind of get as close as I can. If you hit spacebar, it'll play, and then spacebar again will pause it. Okay? So I'm kind of close to where I want to make my cut. What I'll do is I'll zoom in here, and I'll find the exact spot where I want to make that cut. Okay, so I want to make this cut about right here. Yes?
Can you use the arrow keys to go frame by frame or no?
Yes, absolutely. So you can use the arrow keys as well.
So that cut, have you made it yet, the cut?
No, what I'm doing is I'm putting my playhead at the exact point that I want to make the cut, because the razor blade tool works perfectly with the playhead. So what it does, you can make a cut anywhere that you want, but it's best to use it in correspondence with the playhead because it'll snap to the playhead. So I have my razor blade tool now. I'm going to hit right where that playhead is, and it's going to cut my videos.
So now it's just cut the first half. Everything you
Yes.
made up until there is now still in there, but the rest of it is no longer.
No. both of these are still in the composition. Check it out.
Okay.
It hasn't changed at all. But now what you can do is you could take this piece of video, you can move it into another channel, and you can move it around. Okay? So this is one piece. So that's the most basic editing that you're going to do is you're going to just go and sort of cut things up. Okay? So you're going to just be making these really experimental videos. And what you're doing is you're just trying to make like interesting moments of like the glitch and the shape and the texture and the pattern. And a lot of it's going to be garbage, right? Like a lot of it's going to just be like you messing around. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking your videos in here and you're going to be chopping them up and just selecting like small portions of them that you want to work with. For the time being, you don't even have to think about where they're going to go or what they're going to do. You're just going to bring them in here and select the areas that you think are interesting, okay? So let's try this one more time and I'll show you some of the other things that you can do, all right? So go ahead and just find another area of your video, and what we're going to do is we're going to chop the beginning. So we've chopped this little part. Find another area of your video. So let's say I want this whole sort of like, I don't know, whatever this sequence is, where it kind of flips into here. All right, so I'm going to zoom in again. Grab it right when it kind of switches, so probably about right here. Grab my razor blade tool, make a cut. You can still move this around. So your arrow tool, it's kind of like Photoshop. You always go back to the arrow tool, but the razor blade tool, you can still move your playhead around when you're on the razor blade tool, which is nice. So then I'll move my playhead again, I'll zoom out, move my playhead again, and kind of find the end of this sequence. So about here, I'll zoom in again, make sure I get that kind of perfect. Okay, so right at the end there. Okay, so now I have this chunk of video. Okay, when you want to move them around, you'll have to switch back to your general tool, right? Just like Photoshop. Like I can't move this, or I can move this around with the razor blade tool, but I can't move the actual material around with the razor blade tool. So I'm going to grab the arrow, and then I can start to move this around. Okay. Notice how though this actually has an audio channel with it. Okay. So if you want your audio to come with it, my audio is not linked right now, but as you see here, it's linked, okay? So you can actually just delete the audio, because if you look at these channels, if you look at this part here, it says V3, V2, V1, A1, A2, A3. What do you think the V stands for? What do you think the A stands for? Exactly. So you can have as many audio channels as you like, and you can have as many video channels as you like. So for instance, if I move this up one, it'll just create another video channel for me, and so on and so forth. I can make as many video channels as I want. Okay? So then what you can start to do is, now you can start to like layer video. You can start to recreate your composition by moving around these little modules. You can, one second, POTUS. You can, so this one, the audio is connected. Notice how the audio will actually move around with it. Okay? If you do not want that, what you'll do is you will right click on it, and you can go to unlink, and it will unlink your audio. Okay, so then this audio, you can delete it, you can move it around. So you can edit audio in the same exact way that you edit video. It will be automatically linked unless you unlink it. Okay?
You just right click on the little
I right click, you can right click on either the audio or the video and just click unlink. You have to click on the actual video. So click on, and now click on the video, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple other things. The way that this works, I'll show you like another level of editing another day, okay? We're just gonna kind of take baby steps here. Let's say I wanna move this. If you move it over the top of another video, it will get rid of that piece of video and supplant this video in here, okay? So that's something that you kind of have to be careful of. If you want that to happen, it's nice because then you don't have to delete this piece of video. It'll just kind of pick up where it left off. But if you don't want that to happen, the way that this works is I'll only be able to see the video on top, okay? So you can turn this off like you can layers. So here's the layer underneath. Okay, I just turned this eyeball here. That's the layer on top. So it'll only be able to see the layers on top. But just like Photoshop, you could put blend modes on things. There's effects that you can do, okay? So really all I want you to focus on now, for the time being, I'm going to show you how you can like blend video into video, take out the background colors, all that stuff. But our goal for today is to get you capturing your videos in the Signal Culture apps, bringing them in Premiere, and just selecting the small pieces that you think are interesting. Okay, so for instance, you really should just have a file that kind of just looks like, you know, it should just be, by the end of the day, you should just have a file that is just kind of a bunch of pieces of video, and they're separate. One other thing, Photos, I know you have a question. One other thing I want to highlight, though, is when you hover over a video clip, so what's really nice about this, let's say I went over here and I got rid of, maybe I got rid of this like 1 frame too late. It's not gone. When you hover over the end, you can just drag and get the rest of your video back. You could do the same thing. So for instance, let's say you want to cut your video here. You don't necessarily have to use the razor blade tool. You can hover and drag and just get rid of that part. Okay, so you can chop video up, and then you can also sort of like edit the actual time signature of the video, and it'll just get rid of it. Does that make sense? What's your question?
Okay, so similar to like what you were just touching on